Brisbane Lions and Fremantle winners so far in round 15, and that was very grounding to listen to Jeremy McGovern yesterday, and we'll pay suitable tribute today with Adam Simpson, who was part of what transpired at the Eagles yesterday. Crunch time for Freeway Motor Group. Visit Freeway Motor Group for end of financial year deals, and Azito brushless power tools. Built to work, Azito, do you. Jared Waitley with you, Dermot Burton's with me at the MCG. Well, I think we both just made it back from Geelong in time. Taken all the detours and reroutes.
Yeah. I went down Barclay Street. Ended up coming home from Geelong on the freeway. Ended up going down Barclay Street, Footscray. How did you go?
I don't even know where I was.
Just followed the map.
It could have been anywhere. The streets I've never seen before.
At one stage,
pretty rough too.
I was on beach sand. Mate, I've got no idea how it sends you that way, why they've been done that way. Took me 2 hours 50 to get down there. It was extraordinary.
Did your negative split? Was it quicker on the way back?
I spent 6 hours in the car to Geelong yesterday.
Couldn't have just given us 1 hour leeway to get the 30,000 people home, could they?
No.
Make too much sense. No. Adam Simpson, hello.
Oh, good morning. Oh, good afternoon, boys. So what's going on with the road? Like, I'm in Perth, obviously, but the roadworks is still. Haven't they finished that yet? They started that when I was at North Melbourne.
It's
like they're about to restart the next work. Yeah.
They've started the repainting before they finished the last repaint. Yeah.
They started in the 90s, didn't they? So. Anyway. Worth the trip, though. Worth the trip. It was a good game.
Oh, the Lions fans. That one, the 2 bays of Lions fans, and Hutto referenced it in our call last night. It was like a travelling brigade at a European soccer match. And they were there for it, Sam Edmund. It was quite brilliant.
They were, but the whiteout became the washout, didn't they? They got blasted, the Cats. But Cotton On, I'm not sure if this has actually been sort of laid out, but Cotton On covered the cost of the whole thing. I loved it. $5 a shirt thereabouts. What is it, 40,000 shirts? Cost them around $200,000 to do it. I thought it met the mark though. I actually quite liked it atmospherically. They just had little reason to jump up and down to it.
So it was financially viable for them.
Is that allowed, or are other clubs going to protest against it?
They might do, Jared. We live in that era, don't we? They might get raised at the next commission meeting. But no, consider it a donation to the game of sorts. I don't know the fine print of it. But gee, there was some irony.
Do the Cats get that?
No, well, they spent it on the fans who got a free T-shirt.
Oh, so it was free? I thought you said $5 a T-shirt.
No, well, they had to pay, obviously, to manufacture the shirts.
Explain yourself, please.
Well, I did. $5 a pop at 40,000 in the house. They went in, I think, the staff, and had them all down all over the seats, didn't they, beforehand? So everyone came along. And I don't know what... I found myself watching it thinking, what were the Brisbane Lions supporters doing when they got to their seat and found their special tribute T-shirt?
There were none.
No, so they just left it blank.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was quite excellent. And they made the biggest noise of the night, those 2 bays. It was fantastic. Adam Simpson, I love the image. So when Chris Fagan first got to the Lions, he put up a list of streaks and hoodoos, and progressively they have ticked them off. There were 3 left coming into this year as the defending champions: Richmond at the G, Hawthorn at the G, and Geelong at GMHBA, and they've ticked the 3 of them off. And it's sort of 9 years in the making to get get to that.
It's interesting. Is he still living in that space? Because once you win a premiership, that sort of stuff sort of drifts away a little bit, I would have thought. But the fact that it's been such a long time, I don't know how many games they've played down in Geelong, by the way. And sometimes those records are hard to break when you only play there once every couple of years. But, yeah, look, it was a very professional performance. And the way he approached it, we'll talk about it later, but those 2 coaches are probably the 2 most mature, pragmatic, disciplined coaches in the competition, and not taking anything away from the others. So to see those 2 go at it on field, and then how they both presented it off field was a good discussion.
So it was a tactical masterclass. How did you see it?
Well, sometimes the tactic of doing nothing to the opposition is a strong one. And as much as he did some things, what you can get caught up with Chris is he's got 5 ways of getting an extra behind the play, and eventually Stewart's free. And you can chase that down and spend a lot of time on that with your players and your walkthroughs, or you can go, they're going to have a spare. We need to do this when we enter our forward line. And clearly it looked like they changed angles when they entered inside 50. And, yeah, there's a couple of marks here and there that they took. But I thought the way they entered the front half was very disciplined, and a strategic piece that was not really a tactic of stopping the spare. It was working around it. And that's what young coaches, and I definitely got caught up in it, trying to not out coach or outsmart, but just strategize around the +1. He did it a different way, which I think he's done it before. They've got a pretty good record against Geelong, and that's not everything, but you could sort of tell what was going on when they ended their front half.
Sometimes you don't realise what you've got until it's forced upon you. And as much as Jack Payne, you're going to play him every week. And if he's fit, he's playing every week. He's a darn good player. But if you can make do with what you've got, and Harris Andrews being the one uber tall key position player, they just looked quicker out of the back line with only one lumbering defender. And the next biggest is Ryan Lester. They just looked better at ground level. They looked quicker with their ball movement. They looked sharper to run and receive out of their back line without the advantage, I'll call it the advantage, of two big key position players. I mean, Harris is never going to run past Simo, but they just look to be more express coming forward.
Well, they've kicked 7 goals, 5 from the back half, Derm. So what you're right in what you're saying. Their ability to take the game on, and I think it started with the clearances. It looked like they were strong around the midfield, but as the game went on, they've kicked 10 goals, 6 to 3 goals, 9 from the turnover game. But it was back half transition, which complements what you're saying. A bit more speed there, take the game on, get their fair share of turnovers in the front half, and that's what happened in the first quarter. But as the game went, they just looked like they covered the ground a little bit better around the turnover game, and in particular from the back half.
Yeah, there was some irony in last night too, wasn't there, when you consider the last fortnight Brisbane have coughed and spluttered to 21-33 and they shoot 14-8 to 6-15. I mean, it's amazing. Last night they couldn't miss for a period last night. They were drilling them from everywhere.
I think the early 50-metre penalty helped everyone. I don't know who got that one. Who was it?
Levi.
And he was, 25 out? Thinking,
Yeah.
okay, well, just kick this to get going. And it was a 50. I think Smith gave the 50 away. And it's funny when you're a side that's struggling in front of goals, just to get a couple of cheapies early, direct shots, and then it sort of flowed from there. So, yeah, and he's been talking that way, hasn't he, Fags, about everything's fine. We're just not kicking our goals. So the ability to project patience and it's all good, and here's the numbers from the start of the year to now, here's where we sit. We're not a one-trick pony, but we've got to kick straight because we've cost ourselves a couple of wins.
I left there last night thinking the style of game that Geelong tried to play, and maybe we're trying to look for stuff that might not even be there. I've never seen them kick so poorly. This team, this era of team, I've never seen them kick so poorly and make the shot selection so poorly, where they just got chopped off time and time again. When they were screaming out for get down the line, just take it down the line, just play the straight bat on it, just take it 55 metres down the line, compete, take it to a boundary line stoppage. But they kept trying to go inboard and they kept getting chopped off. And I know their kicking was poor at goal, but the shot selection, and I was thinking, is that ground too narrow for the way they want to play? For the first time ever, it had me thinking, are they playing that oval, GMHBA Stadium, worse than they've ever played it before? They're a fantastic team still, let's not forget that. But relative to how good they are.
They've lost a couple of games there this year, but Dan, you reckon the way that Chris presented after the game, his press conference, was one of, well, we had a bad day. That's going to happen. We're a good side. That's not us. Some couple of things there uncharacteristic, and we won't change. It looks like he's not changing too much, does he? It looks like it's just, let's just get back to doing what we do well, and we had an off night. That seems to be the way both those coaches present. And my only other point on that is the 350, the white, I'm not sure, white t-shirts, waving the white flag sort of look halfway through the third quarter. But
Didn't think of that.
I stole that from someone else. But and when you're coaching, and you've got to embrace someone like Danger and what he's done. But there's a video during the week, there's a press conference, there's an acknowledgement, all the things that don't distract you really. I mean, you don't need that motivation to win, but it's there. It's part of, and traditionally they're pretty good at celebrating milestones. I know there's been a couple of milestones when I've been coaching down in Geelong where they've celebrated pretty well, but it's just in your week. So it's not meant necessary distraction, but it is in your week, and I'm sure they're looking forward to a clean week next time they play.
Simo, just on that, I know I'm an era before you, but I reckon throughout our era, at a really good, solid team that was playing grand finals year in, year out, every milestone we had, I can only think of, for champion players, I can only think of one time where we won. And the coach used to drill us and say, your mind's not in the game before the game. Whether he might have instilled us not to be in the game, but we never won milestone games. It was like
what about your milestones? What about your? Did they win your ones?
I wasn't out there long enough.
What about your
I don't
hundreds?
think they did. No, come to think of it, they didn't. We lost.
Well, you
100.
used to get a banner. You know, well, I got my 100th was Adam Simpson 100 consistent games. That was what's written on the.
Oh, no.
Damn, the fake
banner.
praise there.
The encouragement
Oh,
award.
you know, I was backing into that banner.
Consistent.
Simo, I find myself watching the game, coming back to Dern's point about the kicking last night, not just for goal, but the field kicking, thinking of your and Daniel Pratt's 20, 40, 60. The teasing distance that Brisbane applied without the ball was amazing to watch last night.
Yeah, that's a good point, and we call it the moment. So the moment you kick the ball in your forward line, you can't impact the game, so you should cover off. So can you cover off really quickly as soon as it enters your front half? And I thought the Brisbane moment was elite, knowing that Geelong, when they bring their chaos game, they change angles like no one. So protect the corridor down there, get your moment right, and then you'll get your fair share of turnovers. It started that way early. I think there was 6 turnovers centre forward in the first quarter, and then it sort of turned over to the back half in the second half. So definitely good planning, probably less strategy, more focus, if that makes sense. Let's focus on our moment this week as much as let's invent something new.
There's a skill in that teasing distance, isn't it? The same players tend to impact that intercept or disruption of that short pass player. I'm just, as soon as you mention teasing distance, I'm starting to, I can, in my mind's eye, see Cyril Rioli, who was just
Stalking like a
the
panther.
best
ready
of
to-
it. And you could see he'd be teasing distance, and the kicker would say, no, I'm not going to aim up that target. So Cyril he'd take a sidestep to give more distance to that teasing kick. And then he'd just read the eyes. The same players are really, really good at that one skill.
There's some excellent players who can defend 2 players. So McGovern's one of those. So I dare you to kick it. I dare you. And you just find that, I think that might be on. And Cyril was just elite because of his speed. A McGovern type, and there's lots of players that do it well. Sam Mitchell's the smart footballers. Luke Hodge, brilliant at it. Just, I'll cover 2 players. I'll just give you this. Oh, maybe I can hit that kick if I flush it. And if you just miss it by half a metre or it's on the wrong side of the body, then there's a turnover.
The ebb and flow of being the reigning premier, Simo, and I've made the opposite. Last week, it was round 14. For the Giants, it was season on the line. And so they were able to flip it to be the hunter last night, and it was Danny Daly's idea to essentially recreate grand final week, come early. They called it the Brotherhood trip. Fags had reviewed the previous 2 games like they were wins. He presented to them the Adelaide game. He said, 11 shots, we don't kick a goal. I got nothing more for you than that. That's it. And then he said he did a 10-minute review. He felt like, don't meet, build energy. So he just presented the Giants game to them and said, we should have won. And here are the reasons we should have won. We didn't. Now, let's get to business. It feels like, and he is, Bucks and I call him Pollyanna. And
What does Pollyanna mean again? I hear you say that and I'm just a bit slow.
Can see the optimism in any scenario and don't invent a crisis. So he just stayed completely level. I'm interested, just the management of being the reigning premier.
Yeah, well, I mean, Derm could talk about this as well from a playing point of view, and I went through it as a player. But as a coach, obviously we didn't go back-to-back. And I don't think last night was about being the reigning premier. I think that was just a moment of where the season's at. But the little things that I noticed going into the 19 season, and anyone out there who's won a premiership or coach at any level, it's like, oh, we've got the same hunger. Is the spirit the same? And you start reading into everything. I think looking back on what happened with us is our players did a lap of honour that lasted 6 months, and maybe the coach did as well. But the in-season part and the week-to-week grind, become expected, as opposed to the year before. Winning was so exciting and spirit and momentum and the sweet spot. So we found a sweet spot in 19. I think we won 7 or 8 games in a row, but it was like tick the box, move on to next week. I think we forgot to celebrate the little things as much as what we should have. I don't really see that with Chris. I see obviously the positivity about where they're at, because I think he did the same thing last year when they were 1-5 or whatever. I think the numbers suggested they were going better than they were, and I think the same message was pushed then. So I think he may have gone back to that, but I don't reckon it's around premiership defence. I think it's just around rhythm and not losing 3 or 4 in a row. And how do we win this week rather than how do we go back to back, if that makes sense. So from a playing point of view, that's where it's really difficult as a coach. You don't really know what the players are going through. Are they waiting for the harder games to play well? Are they waiting for the back end of the season like we saw with, I think, the Giants early on this year? We're sort of thinking, they'll get going when they have to. All these things come into play when you're a coach, and some of it you can't control. And it looks like Fags has just backed his players in again. That's his consistency.
I was looking last night and thinking, the way we've seen Geelong go out onto the field over the last 4-6 weeks has been a very staple, standard methodology, the way they've set up. And Asheen Mullins played on Charlie Cameron in round 3, and I thought that was the first time I took notice of Asheen Mullins as a player. I thought, gee, he was just about, he's probably in their best 3 players in that loss up at the Gabba. And then they come up again, so you're almost obligated to play Asheen Mullins on Charlie Cameron again. He comes out of the middle. Now Lachie Neale was controlled nonetheless, and that would have been who the natural, I suppose, assignment would have been. And thereafter, you make your moves. Who comes in? Brian Myers comes up and plays as the 7th midfielder, and I was wondering halfway through the game just how much it threw them out from the system that they had applied over the last 6 weeks. It mightn't have thrown them out at all, but it was previous record v. the system that they'd worked with over the last 6 weeks. I'm trying to get my head around whether that had any bearing on how they looked around stoppage.
Well, you look at the depth of the two teams, and you got to tip your hat to Geelong, because their midfield, obviously Smith and Holmes are their number 1 and 2, yeah? And Dangerfield, and we spoke, Jerry, during the week about Danger's break glass. We'll get him in the middle. I think they broke glass at stages last night. But the depth of Brisbane's midfield, it's not underrated. They're premiers, but it bats really, really deep. So if you're taking players out of your midfield to do other jobs when you're playing against Brisbane, you look out. I mean, even the younger players, the Ashcroft and Fletchers and those types, they're just complementing the Dunkleys and Berries and Neils and all these types. Cluggage, geez, it's just Berry. It goes on forever. So, if they're on, if that midfield is on, and you look at Geelong's midfield, and if there's any type of Achilles heel in Geelong, it's probably the depth of their mids with Smith and Holmes. And then you start going down to the Atkins types. So, and then the ruck situation. I think sometimes the ruck situation is a real concern for Geelong as well. So, and this is no disrespect to Geelong, they were playing for second spot last night. So we're talking top end stuff here. We're not talking just being competitive. So, they had an off night. I'm sure they'll put that aside. And I reckon Chris this week will go, hey, let's move on. This, and this, but that's not us. I'm not sure who they've got next week, but
They got the bye.
Well, they'll enjoy the bye too. Both teams have had a big block of games. Brisbane had played 15 games straight, so they're going to enjoy the bye. And it looks like Geelong will as well.
13th last year going in the bye, Brisbane. 2nd this year, so that's a good platform.
Right, the Friday night wrap will continue. Back to Thursday night. Jeremy McGovern's retirement and all the news with Sam Edmund. That's ahead on Crunch Time. The Friday night wrap for AFL Masters. Footy for fun. Have fun. Keep fit. Kick goals for all over 30.